Hey everybody, off the top rope here, off the Mike Sports Network. NXT, big newsworthy night. Starting to have the picture come together for Stand and Deliver, which is just over 2 weeks away. It's hard to believe that it's coming up right around the corner. It's going to be 2 weeks from Saturday um, in Las Vegas. But a big noteworthy decision was made, and it's caused a lot of controversy in the wrestling space. Stephanie Vaquer, who was the double champion, defended both titles in the same night, was heavily promoted. She comes out to the ring to start the show, and it is framed as this: that for the betterment of the women's division, she is relinquishing the North American Championship, and she's just going to be the NXT Women's Champion. Which, you know, I see it from a couple different lenses here. Number one, um, first of all, I think it doesn't look good, especially when you just had a mammoth match with Julia. You had her win the match, have her be the double champion, recognize her as the double champion, have her defend both her titles, and then a week later you just say, hey, you know what? We're just going to move off of it. And they did this before with Keith Lee about 5 years ago when he beat Adam Cole when they did his historic run as NXT champion. He just immediately dropped the North American title and then lost to Karrion Kross, and he was immediately on the main roster. Maybe that's part of this, is maybe they're trying to fast track some of this because their women's division is so loaded, which leads me into my next point, which I totally agree with. For the betterment of the women's division in NXT, considering the amount of talent, both experienced and inexperienced, that is trying to develop into the future stars of the women's division, it did not serve NXT any good to have Stephanie Vaquer walking around with two championships and defending both of them. It just did not, it wasn't going to work long term. Okay. Like, it would have been cool to see for a while, but we even saw it with Becky Lynch when she was both the SmackDown and Raw Women's Champion 5-6 years ago. And she dropped it almost, she held on to them both for a while, and then she just dropped, I think it was she dropped the SmackDown title back to Charlotte Flair. I think it was Money in the Bank. Yeah, she really only held both those titles for like a month. So double title reigns can work, but you have to be really strategic in terms of how you do it. And the problem is there's so many talented women in NXT that it was going to really hurt the division if Stephanie were to be able to hold on to those titles. I thought it was really smart of them to frame it this way, to kind of soften the blow of how this is going to be perceived, and be like, yeah, well, the Julia match now doesn't really, have any value. She beat her, and she took both titles, but now she's just dropping the lesser one. But, they're turning the North American Championship into a ladder match, a 6-person ladder match. Zaria's already in it. Kalani Jordan's already in it. It's going to be a showcase for the other women in NXT. And I was thinking about this for a second. I was like, well, wait a second. A certain CEO in another company with 4 titles now, maybe about to get 5, should take after that and, say, hey, you know what? Maybe I should just drop some of these titles. And I understand that, some of these are in different promotions, but this belt collector thing, in some ways it can be cool and a cool visual to have multiple titles. But if you're just beating up people and, just like, cashing in wins and just cashing checks and, putting down names on your list of people you've beaten, it's not going to really serve a division any much better. So if I'm Tony Khan and I'm Mercedes Mone, the CEO, watching this, I seriously am just like looking at this. It's like, hey, this is actually a good look. And I don't think they'll do it because, Mercedes has too much of an ego. Tony doesn't have a sack to basically tell her no. He's too much of a mark and too much of a fanboy to tell her no. But Stephanie did, and WWE in respect, and also in Stephanie, because, in some respects, she's got to go along with this, in her character, did this for the betterment of the women's division. She did what Mercedes was supposed to do in putting over people. Because you look at this, like I said, Stephanie has been in WWE basically on television since September. She's already the North American champion. She was the North American champion. She's now since dropped it. She's the NXT champion, the women's champion right now. She's going to probably have one of the highest profile matches. She's probably facing Jordan Grace at the Premium Live event. WrestleMania weekend. So all of this stuff, and a year ago, she was putting over Mercedes Mone for one of those titles that she holds right now. And look at both of them. One of them dropped the title for the betterment of the women's division. Meanwhile, the other one is maybe about ready to collect her fifth and maybe her sixth, depending on if this Owen Hart Cup thing goes a certain way. Because I have no optimism whatsoever that she is going to put over Athena at all in this. I have no optimism whatsoever. Or if she does put Athena over, she's taken her Ring of Honor championship at All In probably. Like, however this gets sorted out, it's not going to look good for Athena. And it just is continuously based off where we were at that Forbidden Door match. It's just making Stephanie look way better and like making Mercedes look way worse. And Mercedes had so much equity going into that match. And I feel like that was the turning point for both of these women because a lot of people didn't know who Stephanie Vaquer was in June of 2024. They now know who the hell she is. She's La Primera, and she is the girl, the woman in NXT on top of the best women's division in all of professional wrestling. Meanwhile, Mercedes Mone, she had the big rollout. She already got a championship. She gets the high profile match in a dream match against, an opponent that a lot of people didn't know. And Stephanie won over the crowd. If you remember that, she won over the crowd. Mercedes had to turn heel because of it. And she hasn't been able to recover. No matter what a Mercedes Mone fan will tell you, it has not been good. And then, like I said, seeing this happen at the start of NXT, once you get past the whole preposterous nature of the fact that she just became a double champion, defended both titles, and now she's just dropping one of them. Once you peel that back and you actually look at this decision at face value and you're like, yeah, you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense because you know what? For the betterment of a women's division that has so many people there, having one woman hold two titles is not going to do any good. So I get the feeling that one of two things is going to happen. Tony Khan is inherently on the internet, will react a certain way, and maybe he will just book Mercedes to win all the titles just to piss everybody off because that's a very Vince McMahon thing to do. He could do that. Or, you know what? Hey, have Athena beat Mercedes. Have Athena be the TBS champion and just move off of this. Have Mercedes potentially go after Toni Storm and, maybe have Mercedes face some adversity and actually develop a character. Okay? Because the aura and the mystique has worn off of her. And I think the world of what Sasha Banks is, and I think the world of Mercedes Varnado in terms of what she's done for this wrestling industry. But this Mercedes Mone experiment has been an abject disaster. And when you see a decision like this made, like I said, I completely understand the sentiment of, hey, they wasted a dream match. They had a double champion. They immediately get rid of it. They didn't. But let's be real. Being a double champion is not very feasible in a modern wrestling climate. It's really hard to sell that. And when you have such a deep and strong women's division that NXT does have, it's really hard to sell that. So I get why they did it. They shouldn't have done it this quickly. Maybe you could have done it after Stand and Deliver, or maybe you could have just defended them both, not have them be both at the same time, morph them into one. But I think that's not feasible because, like I said, so many talented women. You made that North American Championship last year for this exact reason because there's just so many people there. So, look, I get it. But to me, what this really showed is one company is doing it the right way by giving, not giving all the titles to one person and making the division about one and really expanding it and trying to showcase more people. Whereas the other is about one person. And really, like I said, all due respect to Toni Storm, like Toni Storm has been shining in the minutes that she's been given because she has taken them. But Mercedes Mone continues to just be the face of this division because that's the way that they parade her around, even though she's the lesser champion. And that's what frustrates me is like, you should be elevating talent and, making things that actually matter. She's just taking up wins. That's all that's happening here. So I don't see really a benefit to this. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll have a lot more coming up here. We're heading towards WrestleMania season. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys. Bye-bye.